Hello everyone and welcome to Historical Accounts, formerly known as Obscure History. Now, as this series has mostly been focused on events and people, I will continue that, but I felt that there was a time for a change in the name as this channel begins to evolve and continue changing. With that being said, let's go ahead and hit today's topic of choice, and that is Guy Louis Gabaldon. Now, this U.S. Marine has an absolutely incredible tale in that he is credited with capturing as many as 1,300 Japanese soldiers during the battles of Saipan and Tiananmen. But let's go ahead and look at this man, what made him who he is, how he became so famous, and how he earned the nickname, the Pied Piper of Saipan. Now, Gabaldon was born in Los Angeles in 1926 to a Mexican family and was raised in East L.A., and at the age of 10 he started contributing to his family by helping shine shoes in the area known as Skid Row. He also joined a multi-ethnic gang at this time known as Moe's Gang. Now, during his youth, he came to meet a family known as the Nakano family, who were of Japanese descent. The boys of this family actually were his best friends, and he did everything with them, eventually learning the Japanese language, culture, customs, basically becoming part of the Nakano family. Skills that he would eventually put to use when he would fight during World War II. Now, interestingly enough, one of the members of the Nakano family was a gentleman by the name of Lane Nakano, and he had actually served in more than a dozen movies in Hollywood after World War II. Now, sadly, all of Gabaldon's time with the Nakano family would come to an end in February of 1942 when Executive Order 9066 came into action. Now, this order, issued by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was a direct response to the Pearl Harbor attack in December of 1941, and it forced all people of Japanese descent into relocation centers, essentially prisons, for the duration of the war. Now, the Nakano family were no different than any other Japanese-American family at the time, and they were sent to the Heart Mountain Relocation Center in Wyoming. Now, because he wasn't of Japanese descent, Gabaldon couldn't go with the Nakano family. He then tried to join the Navy, but he was too young, so he ended up going to Alaska to work in a cannery. Then he turned 17. He tried to join the Navy to serve on submarines, but because he had a perforated eardrum from a street fight, he wasn't allowed to serve. But then he heard that the Marines were looking for Japanese interpreters, and he went to a recruiter and lied his butt off, saying that he could read, write, and speak Japanese as well as any other Japanese person. He basically had an elementary level understanding of Japanese, but they went ahead and took him anyway. After boot camp, he went on to what's known as Enlisted Marine Japanese Language School at Camp Elliott in San Diego. And from there, he would be assigned to Headquarters and Service Company, 2nd Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division. Now, on June 15th, 1944, Marines from the 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions landed on Saipan. Now, Saipan was crucial to the American invasion and attack of Japan's mainland, as they needed a base to launch B-29 superfortresses from. Now, Gabaldon actually arrived a few hours after the initial assault and was part of the cleanup and dig-in by the Marines as they were preparing for further fighting. And instead of doing so, he decided to venture out on his own and go into no man's land. During this time, he actually stumbled upon 3 Japanese soldiers in a trench, and after having to dispatch one that tried to kill him, the other 2 surrendered to him. Now, due to the fact that surrendering Japanese soldiers was extremely rare, Gabaldon actually expected to be praised by bringing these 2 Japanese soldiers back. But instead, he was basically scolded for his actions and threatened with court-martial if he was ever caught doing it again. However, instead of listening, the next night, he went out and actually following the smell of Japanese food being cooked, found an area that they were holding out. And in the morning, he basically chucked a couple of frag grenades and a smoke grenade into their little hole. And the dozen troops that came out, he made surrender, strip, and ran them back across American lines. After completely exacerbating his captain, the captain did actually recognize that he was bringing back valuable intelligence. And due to the fact that he realized Gabaldon was going to do this whether or not he wanted him to, he decided to give him permission to continue bringing back Japanese soldiers as long as he wanted to, or he died. By this point, he had actually gained his nickname, the Pied Piper of Saipan, and was allowed to basically continue doing what he was good at. And he kind of made it a game. He wanted to see how many Japanese he could bring in a single night. One of his greatest exploits came from around July 8th, in which he captured 2 more enemy guards. He convinced one of them to return him to his cave, the hideout that they were at, and after a negotiation with the Japanese officer in charge, managed to get over 800 Japanese soldiers and civilians to surrender to him. He would continue this into the Battle of Tinian, and because of his actions on both Saipan and Tinian, he was recommended for the Medal of Honor by his commanding officer. But despite the recommendation, he would only be awarded the Silver Star. Now, of course, there is some controversy around the numbers. Some experts believed that he increased his numbers significantly. However, by most accounts, even if it wasn't the 1,500 that he claimed that he managed to help capture, the number would be around 800 to 900, which is still an incredibly large amount of people for one man to have captured and surrender to him. Now, he would receive an honorable discharge from the Marine Corps after the war as a result of combat wounds, and in 1960, the Marine Corps elevated his Silver Star to that of the Navy Cross, the second highest award for valor that the Navy can give. And that's followed up with a movie about his exploits called Hell to Eternity, released in 1960. He ran for Congress in 1964 for California. And basically in 1970, he moved back to Saipan and spent the next 20 years of his life there. In 2004, he was actually honored by the Pentagon and recognized for his contributions of Hispanic Americans during World War II. He did pass away on August 31st, 2006, and he is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. There you have it, an interesting look on a young man from East LA who had a very unusual upbringing, and because of the cultural influences of his life, he was able to capture hundreds, if not thousands, of Japanese soldiers and civilians. These actions helped provide an impact on both the Battle of Saipan and the Battle of Tiananmen. But there you have it. I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you on the next time.